Sergeant at Arms, please secure the doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right. Unless we have any volunteers for an invocation, do we have any volunteers? Yes, Chair recognizes President Pro Tem. Please rise for the invocation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, would you join me in a word of prayer? Father God, we come before you this evening with thanksgiving in our hearts. We thank you for your grace and your mercy and your love. We thank you, Lord God, for this beautiful day that you've given us. And we thank you for the honor to serve the people of this incredible state. We love the people that we serve, and we ask, Lord God, that you would shower them with your blessings. We pray that you would travel from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, household to household, and meet each and every individual at their point of need. We ask your blessings over our staff, our families, those that we represent. We ask your blessings over our military, our police officers, social workers, doctors, nurses, teachers, and preachers. Lord God, nonprofits, and all of the businesses that make up this state. Lord God, wherever you find people, we pray that you would just touch them in the way they need it most. For those that have suffered loss or experienced pain, we pray that you would comfort them and keep them in perfect peace as their mind stays on you. We ask that you would watch over us and keep us. In your name, amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you, Senator. We will, if there are no objections, we'd appreciate journalizing the President Pro Tem's thoughtful remarks this evening to get us started. Has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? Everyone recorded their presence. If so, the clerk, chairman of JPR, recording his presence. The clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is yet again back in session. All right, so we got a lot of work, but I don't think any of us want to do a late night tonight. So we're going to do as much as we can, and we'll get through maybe 2 hours. We'll see plus or minus a little bit, and we'll call it. But coming in tonight means no coming in tomorrow night. So we'll have one session tomorrow, but we definitely will end up with a 12 o'clock Saturday session. So we just have a lot that is backed up. We'll get through it, or we won't, and we'll be back in 9 months. So, all right, any other announcements before we jump into it? If not, without objection, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We have some Senate bills passed by the House. This is calendar 9. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 5, Senator Griffith, Public Health Implicit Bias Training in the Office of Minority and Health Disparities.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. We have some House bills, first reading House bills, calendar 35. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 132, Delegate Bagnall, Health, Mental, and Emotional Disorders, Consent.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. We will send those to the Rules Committee. I thought we had a Rules Committee report here somewhere, but maybe it is coming. Oh, there it is. Report of the Committee on Rules, Report 9. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 108, Delegate Charkoudian, Behavioral Health Crisis Response Services Modifications to Finance.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. The Chair of the Rules Committee indicates that these bills are ready to roll off to their standing committees. All right, let's get through. So we have, the calendar is going to be a bit odd today because we want to get our Senate bills moving as quickly as possible. So we're going to go through our Senate bills, get them going, and then we'll come back to the regular order if there are no objections. We've got a report of the Committee on Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs, report number 48. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 677, Senator Edwards, Allegheny County Alcoholic Beverages Transfer and Auction of Licenses, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is identical to House Bill 883, which we passed in the last session. This bill establishes a Class BD beer, wine, and liquor license in Allegheny County and authorizes them to sell or establish 2 licenses. There were 2 amendments. The first is technical. The second describes what I just described in the beginning. I move the amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right. The floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 677 is hereby ordered passed to 3rd reader. One moment. All right, clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 829, Senator Lamb, Emergency and Expedited Procurement Reform, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 12. Sponsor of the bill is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 829 is identical to the House cross-file of HB 1091 that we heard and described yesterday. There are 2 committee amendments that conform this to the House bill. As a quick reminder, this is a bill that reforms the emergency procurement and expedited procurement process. Move the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 829 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. We've got a Senate bill out of EHE. This is calendar 50. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 711, Senator King, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Pilot Program, established, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Growing Family Child Care Opportunity Pilot Program, Senate Bill 71. I described it earlier this morning, but this is our Senate version. And the sponsor is a former chair of our Joint Committee on Children, Youth, and Families and has been focused on these important issues. The bill is similar to the Senate, the House file that I described earlier, but there are 2 committee amendments. One is technical. The second one requires MSDE to award at least 3 grants of a specific amount in accordance with the specified grant eligibility provisions. It establishes the grant eligibility and application provisions, and it also provides that the governor shall use the federal funds to the extent authorized under federal law to provide for the funding of the program. I move for the adoption of the committee amendments and the committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendments say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 711 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. We've got a Senate bill again out of EHE. This is calendar number 52. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 55, Senator Signor, Legislative Department, eligibility to serve as senators and delegates, place of abode, favorable. This is a constitutional amendment.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an important bill, colleagues. It basically says that if you want to run for office, you have to live in your district. This is going to be a constitutional amendment. We think it should go on the ballot. It was passed unanimously by our committee. And in addition to living in your district for 1 year, which is current law, it says that if there's redistricting and you're in a new district, that you have to be in your district for 6 months. There were no committee amendments. It passed the committee unanimously and moved the favorable report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd district on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Madam Floor Leader.
Will the floor leader yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you. In my last election, my opponent did not live in District 32. He lived in District 31. And I was told by the Board of Elections that we had 9 days to contest that, and then that decision was over. And so if he had stayed in District 32, he would have lost his seat on the county council. So he moved back to his home in District 31, which he never sold, and continued to run in District 32, which was illegal. So what happens if a similar incident happens in the next election?
So I'm going to try to navigate that situation, but let me be clear that if your abode, if your place of residence, which is where you live and where you're registered to vote, gets redistricted and you are then put into a different district, you do have time to either, and let's say you've already filed for re-election or for election, you have time to either stay in that district where your house is and run there, or you can switch to the district that you prefer, but then you have to establish an abode at least 6 months prior to November's election day.
So you're not answering my question, I'm sorry. So he never lived in District 32, ever?
That does not, I mean, there was a court case several years ago, which is why this is a constitutional
The Blount
amendment.
case?
And this, I mean, there was that case, and that is why people have, I don't want to say gotten away with it, but I will say have been less precise in their place of domicile. This constitutional amendment would undo the court decision and make sure that people are living in the place that they hope to represent.
Thank you, Madam Floor Leader.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 7 on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question for the Senator who proudly represents Gaithersburg and Rockville.
Will the floor leader yield?
That would be me. Yes,
Senator may proceed.
Just a technical question. I'm just trying to figure out the 6-month and 1-year limit or time frame. What is that from? Election day, day you take office?
Fair question. It's from Election Day, from the November Election Day.
So general election day.
Yes,
back
sir.
6 months. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 34.
Senator from 7 just answered my question. Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. All right, on the report, any further discussion? Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a question. If
Will
I
the
could
floor leader yield?
ask the floor leader.
Senator may proceed.
Sure.
Thank you. Let me just pose a hypothetical. Let's assume that next year we don't get to do the redistricting until sometime in January. And the primary is in June. The filing deadline is in February. The general election is in November. Does that mean that someone could move into your district after the filing deadline and qualify to run against you because there's 6 months that would run between that date and November?
It's a great question, and we had that conversation. We had that both during the voting session as well as many of us had these conversations with the State Board of Elections, figuring that out. So if you think about next year, which is your hypothetical, 2022, this goes on the ballot in 2022. So this would not yet apply for next year's election. But
So we don't have to worry
certainly, I
about
think colleagues are, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we don't want to have to worry about the redistricting issue until 2030.
Correct. But we
All right.
do have,
Thank you.
but we do have challenges with certainly the timing of the delay of the data and redistricting and whether we're going to have a special session in the fall and when maps get proposed. But this will not apply because this would not be before the voters until next year.
I see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
All right, on the report, any further questions?
Yes.
If not,
Mr.
the
President.
Chair recognizes the Senator from College Park.
Thank you very much.
Senator has a question?
Yeah.
Senator may, floor leader will yield.
Will
Senator
you-
may proceed.
Thank you very much. On the 6-month issue, I remember in 2002 when we did redistricting, the court made a late ruling. The Court of Appeals made a late ruling that I think was in June, if I recall correctly, that changed districts. Well, June is less than 6 months to November, or close to it. Given the unpredictability of court challenges to redistricting, and I know it doesn't apply to next year, but there's an off chance that Maryland legislature will be here for a couple of hundred years more. And as a constitutional amendment, I worry a little bit about how do you deal with it if the court rewrites the plan within the 6 months?
That is something that we mused about, actually. I wonder, I'm going to have counsel just make sure I give you the right answer.
The counsel from the 22nd District.
Counsel in
I
the
know,
office,
I'm joking
actually.
with you.
Hopefully we
Will
only,
the floor leader yield to the
chair, please.
Senator may proceed.
It's my understanding that the Constitution says if the district existed, you had to live there for 6 months. If it's a newly created district, it wouldn't apply.
Okay, so there's an out in that situation.
I couldn't hear you.
There's an out in that situation. Therefore,
Yes.
we wouldn't have that. If the court makes a later decision,
Right.
the 6 month to the election does not apply.
According to counsel, that's correct.
Okay. Just a small suggestion, maybe Attorney General's opinion or something to the Board of Elections and nail that down, because a constitutional amendment can live forever.
Right, but if I could,
Sure.
Madam Floor Leader, the dates, the 6 months in the year are in law already.
Right.
This doesn't change that. I don't believe. It's changing the abode. Okay, the 1 year is in law
6
already.
months is new.
Yeah, the focus of the bill is actually living in the residency rather than just renting a place.
Oh, I know. I understand
That's the
that.
focus of the bill.
Thank you very much.
All right. For instance, in the 2002 year, the 46th and 47th districts were half and half around the port. Now it is just the 46th, and our good friend from the District 47 is down in Prince George's. So, all right. Chair recognizes the senator from District 10 on the report.
Guys, this is not just fictional. I actually ended up before the Court of Appeals after the last redistricting because I ended up in a mess like this. I shared costs with another person from our jurisdiction, but we didn't win our case. I ended up winning anyway, but this is real and it could happen, so be sure you know what you're doing when you vote. This is very, very important. I think I spent $15,000 for a lawyer who turned out not to have been a good one. I think I should have won the case. Okay.
Fair enough. All right. Chair recognizes Senator. Oh, wow. From the 36th district.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for the floor leader.
Will the floor leader yield?
Sure.
I've seen this 2 times in the bill. How do you know when to use the word which or that?
You're asking a grammar geek about
That's
that?
exactly why I'm asking you, because I figured you would be able to enlighten us all on this.
I did not draft the bill, but the emphasis of the bill is that you've got to live in your district.
Okay, I can Google it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Senator from Montgomery County, Vice Chair of Finance.
Yeah, just one quick question.
The floor
This
leader
has
yield for a
always
question.
come up with the idea when we talk about an election, is it the primary or the general? And clearly you've indicated that it's the November election, which we're measuring. Was there any discussion about having a date relative to the primary election? You know, I mean, in many cases, you know, that is the election in many districts, and I've always wondered if there is any constitutional reason why we have to govern it by the November general as opposed to a period prior to the primary, which seems to me could be defensible, you know, as well.
Thank you, Senator. That's a fair question because in many districts, I might almost venture in most of our districts, the primary is the de facto election. But the law is that we are not elected until the November general election, and it is certified. All the votes are counted. It is delivered to the State Board of Elections, and then we are deemed to have been elected, and that's why November is the date.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Chair, any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that I've read the bill and thought about it more, I've got a personal situation I want to ask. This isn't a hypothetical.
Will the floor leader yield for a question?
I'm sorry, could I talk to the floor leader for a moment?
Pierso, Senator may proceed.
Of course.
Yes. So this is a personal situation that actually occurred. When I was running for Senate, a fellow decided to run against me in the Republican primary, and he filed his candidacy about 3 weeks before the filing deadline. I knew that he did not live in the district, and so I consulted the Maryland Code. And the Maryland Code says in order to strike someone from the ballot, the legal proceeding has to be filed on the 9th day following the filing deadline. So that's exactly what I did. I filed suit against him on the 9th day after the filing deadline and proceeded to get his name stricken from the ballot after the court heard the case. Now, suppose next year some person would decide to challenge me in the primary. well, this doesn't go into effect next year. But when this does go into effect, if someone decides to challenge a sitting senator in the primary who doesn't live in the district, and the senator follows the law and files the case to strike his name from the ballot 9 days after the filing deadline, would it be a sufficient defense for the person who doesn't live in the district to assure the judge that he intends to move into the district 6 months before the November election? In other words, several months down the road. And if that were to happen, if that were not to happen, if he were to tell the judge that that's what he intends to do, but then does not do it, and is not living in the district on either the primary date or the general election date, what would the recourse of the candidate running for re-election to the Senate be?
Okay, so nothing about the filing dates or the application dates or the appeal dates would be covered by this constitutional amendment. And again, next year, it wouldn't even be relevant.
I know.
But your case, I believe that the primary in 2018 was in May or June. I can't fully remember.
I think it was in June.
June. So if that was, which was closer than 6 months. So depending on when he filed, he would have to not just make, or she would have to not just make a promise to move, but would already have to have established an abode. And just to be clear, the chair has talked about can't just rent. So can't just rent empty space, but they can totally be renters and live in a space. But it has to be their primary residence, has to be where they're registered to vote, where they sleep most nights.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much.
All right, on the report, if there are no further questions, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 55 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, we've got some Senate bills out of budgeting and taxation. This is calendar 31. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 578, Senator McCray, income tax retroactive changes under the Federal CARES Act, addition, modification, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. Senate Bill 578 with the committee amendments now alters the automatic 1-year decoupling provision under the state income tax by specifying that the provision applies to amendments of the Internal Revenue Code that affect state revenues in a taxable year that precedes the calendar year in which the amendment is enacted. Move adoption of the committee report, Mr. President.
All right, the floor leader moves to the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 578 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 849, Senator Lamb, property tax credit, airport noise zones, eligibility, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 30 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I think everybody here knows that when you live near an airport, it tends to be a little noisy. Senate Bill 849 alters a local option property tax credit for owner-occupied real property located near the Baltimore-Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport, BWI. Mr. President, there are 2 amendments. The first is technical. The second provides more flexibility to the local jurisdiction should they choose to enact the property tax credit. And it provides the Maryland Aviation Administration in terms of rental cars to treat like services as part of a class within a certain radius of the airport. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report on the 2 amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 849 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Over to judicial proceedings, calendar 39. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 234, Senator Lamb, personal information, state and local agency, restrictions on access, favorable with 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Geez, sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill modifies the Maryland Public Information Act to require an officer, an employee, an agent, or a contractor of the state or a political subdivision to deny inspection of records and deny inspection using facial recognition searches by any federal agency seeking access for the purpose of enforcing federal immigration law unless provided with a valid warrant. In addition, the person who receives the specified personal information under the PIA may not disclose the information to a federal agency for the purpose of federal immigration purposes unless presented with a valid warrant. The Motor MVA, the Department of State Police, and the Department of Public Safety Correctional Services must submit a specified annual report. Mr. President, there are 3 amendments. 1, adds sponsors. Number 2 is technical. Amendment number 3 adds the prohibition on a person who receives personal information under PIA sharing that information with a federal agency for immigration enforcement. The amendment also restricts the reporting requirement to the bill to only apply to the MVA, the State Police, and the Department of Public Safety. Finally, the amendment modifies provisions of the bill relating to databases by specifying that an entity which operates a database must deny access on any individual accessing for purpose other than federal immigration purposes. With that, Mr. President, I would ask for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 234 is hereby ordered, printed for third reader. All right, we got another out of judicial proceedings. This is 41. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 229, Senator Wallstreicher, Public Safety Pretrial Services Program Grant Fund, Extension and Program Requirements, favorable.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is unacceptable that many of our indigent neighbors are required to pay for their own GPS monitoring or pretrial services. This bill prohibits a pretrial services program that receives a grant from the Pretrial Services Program Grant Fund from charging a fee to any defendant for participation in the program. The bill also extends the termination date of the Pretrial Services Program Grant Fund. There are no committee amendments. Mr. President, I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 229 is hereby ordered, printed for third reader. All right. Let's do these not concurs, get these conference committees set up. First one we've got, we have a couple. We got a lot of conference committees here. This is Senate Bills amended in the House Calendar 26. Clerk will read the first bill. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Senate Bill 43, Senator Elfrith, Criminal Law Enforcement Officers, Prohibition on Sexual Activity, JPR.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate moves to not concur. As passed by the Senate, Senate Bill 43 expands the list of individuals a law enforcement officer is statutorily prohibited from engaging in sexual contact with a person who is a victim, witness, or a suspect in an open investigation that the law enforcement officer is conducting, supervising, or assisting with law enforcement officer. The House amendment struck the exemption language from the bill. The committee moves not to concur. I'd move the not concurrence. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, the committee moves to not concur. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the senator's motion, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The clerk will read the message.
By the majority leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Hettleman chair, Senator Bailey, Senator Jackson. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is ordered adopted. All right, clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 105, Senator Signor, Peace Orders, Workplace Violence, JPR.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House amendments strike the amendments adopted by the Senate and place the bill back into its original posture. The Senate amendments, which were struck by the House, specified that the bill may not be interpreted to create or impose a duty on an employer to file a petition on behalf of an employer. They removed the immunity from the bill created by the employers. The provision would have made employers immune from civil liability that may result from the failure of the employer to file a petition on behalf of the employee. The committee voted not to concur.
All right, the committee moves to not concur. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Signor chair, Senator Hedelman, Senator Carter. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is ordered adopted. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 250, Senator Lee, Criminal Law, Sexual Crimes, Fourth-Degree Sexual Offense, and Spousal Defense, JPR.
Chair recognizes Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. As passed by the Senate, Senate Bill 250 repeals an exemption from prosecution from specified sexual crimes if at the time of the alleged rape or sexual offense the person was the victim's legal spouse. The House amendments altered the short title of the bill and struck definitional language. The committee moves not to concur.
All right, the committee moves to not concur. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Lee chair, Senator Carter, Senator Huff. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is ordered adopted. All right, we've got another out of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. This is calendar 31. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 509, Senator Peters, National Capital Strategic Economic Development Program, eligibility, Education, Health, and Environment, and Budget and Taxation.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill redefines the National Capital Region and clarifies some vagueness for funding purposes in the NED bill, similar to the Bernie bill in the Baltimore area. The House added some amendments expanding the scope of funding areas. Education, Health, and Environment recommends to not concur.
All right, the committee moves that we not concur with House amendments. On the motion, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Penske chair, Senator Washington, Senator Patterson. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is ordered adopted. Let's do the second readers into House bills. This is starting with Finance, calendar 45. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1328, Delegate Feldmark, Economic Development Broadband Providers, Joint Trenching and Fee, Building Our Broadband Act of 2021, favorable.
Chair recognizes Chair of the Committee.
Thank you. Senate Bill 1328 is identical to House Bill 1328 is identical to Senate Bill 824, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill requires the Maryland Department of Transportation, MDOT, and units of local government to allow joint trenching by broadband providers as specified. MDOT and local governments are authorized to assess fees to certain broadband providers that participate in joint trenching. The bill expressly authorizes local governments to adopt policies to extend broadband access to underserved areas. No amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? If not, House Bill 1328 is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1375, Delegate Kelly, Health Information Exchanges, Electronic Health Information Sharing and Disclosure, favorable.
Chair recognizes Chair of the Committee.
Thank you. House Bill 1375 requires the Maryland Health Care Commission, MHCC, to adopt regulations that require the state-designated health information exchange to develop and maintain a consent management application. Among other requirements, the consent management application must allow a person to opt out of having electronic health information shared or disclosed by a health information exchange provide in HIE with the opt-out status of a person and prohibit an HIE from sharing or disclosing the information if the person is opted out of having the information shared or disclosed. The bill requires MHCC to establish penalties for noncompliance with the regulations. MHCC, in consultation with specified stakeholders, also must make a recommendation on an updated statutory definition of a health information exchange and report its recommendation to specified legislative committees. There are no amendments, no fiscal impact, no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1375 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Another report out of Finance, number 46. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 207, Delegate Wilson. Nursing homes, resident change in condition, notification, and consultation with physician, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you. House Bill 207 specifies that a nursing home consistent with confidentiality laws must immediately notify a resident and or the resident's representative or interested family member and to consult with the resident's physician regarding listed changes in the condition of the resident or a decision to transfer or discharge the resident. The bill also alters the definition of change in condition to include the need to alter treatment for specified reasons. The bill's provisions regarding the new notification requirements are consistent with federal law. There are no amendments, no fiscal impact, no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments for the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 207 is hereby ordered passed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1211, Delegate D. Barnes. Economic Development, Maryland Technology Development Corporation, Pre-Seed Builder Fund, favorable.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee's floor leader.
House Bill 211 establishes the Pre-Seed Builder Fund in the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, TEDCO, as the successor to the Pre-Seed Builder Fund established in TEDCO regulations. The purpose of the fund is to support the development of startup companies run by entrepreneurs from socially or economically disadvantaged backgrounds that hinder access to traditional forms of capital and executive networks at the pre-seed stage. The governor must include an appropriation to the fund of $5 million in fiscal 2023, $6.2 million in fiscal year 2024, and $7.5 million annually beginning in fiscal 2025. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1211 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. We've got report out of Education, Health, Environmental Affairs, Calendar 51. Clerk will read the bill.
Okay. Thank you. House Bill 1058, Delegate Stewart, Public Ethics, Disclosures, Training, and Use of Confidential Information, Integrity, and High Office Act, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is a bill that is common sense, increases transparency, and increases disclosure. As you know, we all have to complete annual ethics report. We get involved with trainings on disclosure, and yet our top 5 elected officials are exempt or not covered currently. This bill would change that. The governor, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, the comptroller, and our state treasurer would all have increased applicability for some training and some disclosure. So here's the problem. Unlike us, they can't recuse themselves when there's a conflict of interest. They can't say, well, I know I'm on the Board of Public Works, which only has 3 votes, but I'm not able to vote on this because I've got...
Excuse me, Senator, one moment. It's just getting a little loud in here. If we could please just focus on the senator who has the floor. Thank you. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. So they can't opt out of participating the way we can. We can push a button that says excused, or we can disclose our personal financial conflict. But when you're the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, comptroller, or treasurer, you really may not have that option. And yet we do want to know about any possible financial or legal conflicts. So this bill would include our county electeds, like our sheriffs, our clerks of the court and registers of wills and others, to get the 2-hour training on ethics. It would also require our top 5 elected officials to file the reports, but they would be confidential. We don't want all of their stuff out there. They would file it and share it with the Joint Ethics Committee, who would have access to that information where it would stay confidential. They would also, this bill also requires that ownership of any businesses be disclosed, but rather than at a 30% rate, it would be a minimum of 10%, and in addition to their ownership, anyone else with a minimum ownership of 10% would also be disclosed. So let's say there was a company that had 10 partners and each owned 10% of it. We would want to make sure not just that the elected official wouldn't personally benefit, but that he or she couldn't be doing something for their buddies through this business. So it has a bunch of other stuff. It also reinforces confidentiality of information that someone might have gotten during their tenure, but even after they've left the job, they would not be able to share. So those are kind of some of the key things. It covers quasi-governmental organizations as well. This bill had no amendments. It passed unanimously in the House of Delegates, unanimously in our committee, and I urge a favorable, request a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of favorable committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or recital? Seeing none, House Bill 1058 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reading. All right. To Budget and Tax, report number 32. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 495, Delegate Polakovich-Carr, Income Tax, Internal Revenue Code Amendments, decoupling, favorable.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th District as the floor leader.
House Bill 495 alters the automatic 1-year decoupling provision under the state income tax by specifying the provision applies to amendments of the Internal Revenue Code that affect state revenues in any taxable year that precedes the calendar year in which the amendment is enacted. There are no committee amendments. Move adoption of the committee report, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 495 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1180, Delegate Hill, Property Tax Credit, Airport Noise, Zones, Eligibility, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from 30th District as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, we're back to airport noise. House Bill 1180 alters the local option property tax credit for owner-occupied residential real property located near the BWI airport. Mr. President, there are 2 committee amendments, just like the Senate bill. The first is technical. The second provides the Maryland Aviation Administration in terms of rental cars to treat like services as part of a class within a certain radius of the airport. I move the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1180 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1252, Delegate Sample Hughes, Income Tax Credits for Preceptors in Areas with Healthcare Workforce Shortages, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the Middle Shore as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 1252 extends to June 30th, 2026, the termination dates of the licensed physician and nurse practitioner preceptor income tax credits, and it clarifies requirements for a rotation to be eligible for that credit. The bill also establishes a physician assistant preceptor income tax credit. The State Board of Physicians will assess a $15 fee for the renewal of the physician assistant license to be paid to the physician assistant preceptor tax credit fund to offset the cost of the physician assistant preceptor tax credit. There are no amendments. Move the adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1252 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. We've got report number 34 out of Budget and Tax. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 310, Delegate Learman, Maryland Arts Capital Grant Program, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 30th District as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, we know the value of arts and cultural organizations across the state of Maryland, and they've been particularly hard hit during this pandemic. House Bill 310 is the exact match of Senate Bill 323 as it passed the Senate. It establishes the Maryland Arts Capital Grant Program and the Maryland State Arts Council that will administer the program and hire at least one full-time coordinator for the program. From fiscal 24 through 29, the governor must include $3 million in the state operating or capital budget for the program. Colleagues, this is essential for making sure that when we can eventually return to normal, that we have those vibrant and thriving arts and cultural organizations back and ready. Mr. President, there are no committee amendments. Move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 310 is hereby ordered passed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1255, Delegate Ivy, Homestead and Homeowners Property Tax Credits, Access and Eligibility, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th District as the floor leader.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you all know that there is a cost in owning a home. And House Bill 1255 will require the State Department of Assessments and Taxation to create a specified document regarding the homestead property tax credit for inclusion with contracts of sale for residential real property. The bill also establishes certain reporting requirements for SDAT. There are several committee amendments. One amendment that adds the Budget and Tax Committee to a summer study of the calculation of the gross income for the purposes of the homeowner's tax credit. Move the adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1255 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Back to JPR. We've got Calendar 40. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 23, Delegate Stein, Personal Information, State and Local Agency, Restrictions on Access, Maryland Driver Privacy Act, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 23, as amended, is in the same posture as Senate Bill 234, which I read across the desk a little earlier this session. I'd move adoption of the favorable committee report and the one amendment.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee, one amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 23 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. We've got Judicial Proceedings 42. Clerk, read the bill.
House Bill 126, Delegate Moon, Public Safety Pretrial Services Program Grant Fund, Extension and Program Requirements, favorable.
All right, Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is in the same posture as SB 229, which we just advanced to third reader a moment ago. There are no committee amendments. I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 126 is hereby ordered passed for third reader. All right, let's do a quorum call before third reading calendar.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Can we hit the bells one time just to, as we get going here? All right. Let's just do these House bills. We'll get these House bills going. This is calendar 32. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1047, Delegate Wilkins, Mail-in Voting Enhancement Act.
All right, House Bill 1047 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1047, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1091, Delegate Resnick, State Procurement, Emergency, and Expedited Procurements, Revisions, and Reporting.
House Bill 1091 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes Chair of the committee.
Mr. President, thank you. On the bill.
On the bill.
I would be remiss, Mr. President, if I didn't speak to this bill. Yesterday it was presented and there was no discussion. I actually think I heard crickets. A year ago next Saturday, a charter airplane landed at BWI Marshall Airport with great fanfare. National media, international media was there to welcome the tests from South Korea. You couldn't miss it. Unfortunately, there were a few problems. The first one is that those tests were not bought based on a contract. There was no contract for those tests. That $9 million expenditure did not come along with a contract. Secondly, it was never approved by the chief procurement officer for the state of Maryland. And third, they were not authorized by the FDA. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, they didn't work. We spent $9 million on tests that didn't work and had to be returned. Why did that happen, and why is this bill before us? One, the guardrails on emergency procurement are very loose and very low, and it allows too much wiggle room, and that's why this bill is in front of us. And unfortunately, even with some of these guardrails, they've been ignored. We had to pay another $2.5 million to get a set of tests that worked. And in fact, when that plane landed at BWI Marshall, it cost taxpayers $475,000. Taxpayer money. Now, the second batch was shipped with $15,000. But the landing and the photo op cost taxpayers almost $500,000. Now, if that were all, maybe we could rest and just shake our heads. But sometime later, when an effort was made to buy masks, what happened? A phone call came to the second floor and said, we know some folks who have some masks. And they bought them. They didn't go to Google to find out anything about this company. But we did. This company was in business for 50 hours. They had been incorporated 50 hours before these masks were purchased. And what was their experience? The two owners walked the halls of Congress as political operatives. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an abomination. And we were given half-truths. We had a joint hearing with HGO, and we didn't get honest answers. It wasn't until later that we found out they had to return those. They said, well, we're going to use them later in the summer. No, they weren't. The Department of Audits came out with an audit on Friday. And they said the pervasive lack of written documentation to support the key aspects of the procurement use and validity of the tests were disclosed in that report. They also found in the report 2 employees who said these tests don't work were fired. You should read the summary of the audit report. It's online. We have to be more responsible with the public money. You know, last week we talked about accountability, and earlier this week we talked about accountability. Well, we also have to be accountable, and the administration has to be accountable with the public money and public purchases. Just because it falls under the emergency rubric doesn't mean you can do anything. This bill sets some stronger guardrails, and we can only hope that this administration, future administrations, abide by those guardrails. But there'll be no reason, no excuses in the future for playing fast and loose, particularly with public taxpayer money. So, Mr. President, I'm happy to cast a green vote, and I hope everyone in this body who believes in accountability of the public money and to ensure we have no further abuses in the future, join me in voting green.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 33 on the bill.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments from my peer, the chairman. He and I are both basketball coaches. I don't know if you knew, but he coached a state championship basketball team when he was back there. And I was coaching up at Archbishop Spalding, some JV girls, not quite the same league. But when we sit in our couches watching Gonzaga and Baylor, we knew exactly where Gonzaga made their mistakes. Our 2020 hindsight was perfect. And I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that's the situation today. Now, I voted for this bill in committee, and I'll vote for it on the floor, but the comments were very personal, so let's get the facts on the table. First of all, the hindsight for 2020, how many times did we see as New Year's Eve was coming that we were thankful it was over? March, April, May of 2020 were dark. They were scary. We were fearful. There's still people today who aren't going out to restaurants or to the grocery stores. There's absolutely anxiousness. It's easy to criticize now, but on that day when the governor and his wife were standing on the tarmac, many of us sitting on our couches in our homes, hunkered down, saw it as a ray of hope. Everything was so dark and bleak. There was so much we didn't know. We didn't know about all the details about the test. We didn't know about how effective they were be, but we wanted somebody to do something. And we had a leader in Maryland who did it. Mistakes, errors, hey, 2020 hindsight, absolutely clear as a bell. But NBC got on the news on April 20th and said Hogan was
exponentially expanding its testing capabilities, focusing on high priority outbreaks and clusters, and he was including healthcare workers, first responders, and poultry processing facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the people we cared about to be able to do their jobs in our communities. So, beside the tests, and as the chairman said, the PPEs, I went out and I found some masks and gloves from a vendor who I really didn't know much about them, but they were recommended to me. I picked up 1,000 masks and 1,000 sets of gloves, and I went to my local church, my local volunteer fire department, and I went to some of my elderly neighbors to make sure they had protection. So the feds, remember, this was April. Remember our wonderful president who basically said, states, you're on your own? Do you remember when he abandoned us? Not his finest moment. But let's ask the question and find out for sure how the governor found out about this company. Now, many people think First Lady picked up the phone and called back. Just remember, our First Lady comes from humble background. And she's come so far. She didn't have the network to do this. Do you know who suggested this company, along with others? Is our congressional delegation published a list of several vendors to consider. And this firm was on the list from our congressional delegation. And yet we also had to remember that Korea had already been in several months worth of this pandemic and was praised for their responsiveness. They learned how to do it, they did it well, and this was one of the companies that helped him. So in mid-April, the governor reached out, made the deal, and here comes the plane with all this testing equipment. It was delivered at the end of April. And I just want to make sure we have the date on record. Do you know that on April 30th, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration granted emergency use authorization for these tests? Maybe around April 15th, when the governor made the decision, he didn't have an assurance from a federal agency, but he wanted to do something. And lo and behold, several weeks later, our federal government responded. I represent the citizens who needed assurance of our health from leadership in the state of Maryland. We wanted to protect ourselves. This was the governor's sincere, honest attempt to help us. Now, the other interesting thing is here we are a year later, and we ask ourselves, what have our citizens, our neighbors, the voters said about the governor? Still one of the highest approval ratings in the United States. Now, this current bill calls for integrity and for disclosure and for guardrails. We hope and pray no executive in this state or in this county have to face the problems that Governor Hogan did. But I'm convinced he did the right things as fast as possible. And I'm very proud to defend him on the floor, but also to recognize that this bill will be a little cumbersome. It has some guardrails. It has some emergency ability to get things done. And I'll be voting green for this bill. Mr. President, thank you for my opportunity to make some extended comments.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Senators, I think we've heard a lot on this issue. So let's, if we can, keep our comments to the bill moving forward here. If we could hear from the senator from District 34, followed by the senator from District 21. On the bill.
President. Colleagues, I come to this from sort of a unique perspective that I had the opportunity to serve as a contracting officer representative in a war zone. So I sat with a lot of very senior leaders, civilian and military, who were directly responsible for people's lives, both people under them and the community in general. And when you feel the pressure that these folks are under, when they realize that their actions, they stand between life and death, and the pressures that puts on people, and you're weighing life versus money, and you feel a sense that you've really got to reach out and be a little bit less secure with your pocketbook and a little bit more cautious and try to do things. You kind of want to grab every opportunity when lives are at stake, and you see people around you who are dying, and you know you're going to have to face their families at some point. You really want to do anything you can. And does money flow too freely in those zones? Well, I mean, we wasted a lot of money over there. But it was. I never saw it done maliciously. I always saw it done by people who truly wanted to do the best thing. And it's essential in those situations that we do have, leaders do have the flexibility to reach out, because you know what? Sometimes those expenditures save lives. They save lots of lives, and they enable you to get through it. The trouble is, you don't know usually going in which thing is going to end up being a kind of a throw the money away, and which thing is going to end up being hugely successful in saving lives. There's a lot of risk. I am somewhat concerned about, I've read through these regulations several times. They are a little bit more cumbersome. I'm not so sure that they make things impossible up front. I mean, I appreciate this body's role that they undertook to investigate and see what happened. I'm always up for that. I'm a stickler for accountability and government efficiency and accountability. So I'm not here to denigrate any of that. But I do think that it's important that we recognize, as we shaping these policies, these laws, that we don't know what that next emergency is going to be. We don't know the dire situation. We don't know just how desperate those leaders are going to feel in their darkest hours. So I appreciate you hearing from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair. Recognize the Senator from District 21.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the bill, but I believe that the chairman of EHE has provided context that is incredibly important. I do not in any way criticize the governor for reaching out in all directions to try to get tests when we needed them. That was the right thing to do. And I don't criticize him for failing to do so. Failure is part of succeeding. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But, and I'm really frankly responding in a way to my other colleague, I actually think that photo op at the airport was incredibly cynical, frankly. I'm willing to take the governor's word for it, his staff's word for it. They didn't know the test didn't work. They probably didn't know the test didn't work. But they should have figured it out before they spend almost $500,000 to do a photo op. And it's relevant because in the overall effort with testing, and I serve with others here on the Oversight Committee on the COVID crisis, as well as now on the President's vaccine group. PR is not good management. There are different things. You can get great PR.
Senator, can we please keep comments to the bill itself?
Okay, I will.
We've got a long agenda today.
I will. Thank you, Mr. President. This bill will not do very much about that. And that's on the bill. The provisions in the bill, they sound like they're improvements, but they won't solve the problem that created the mess we had with testing, the mess we've had with tracing, and the mess we've had with vaccines. Passing a law like this is not going to fix that. It's not about procedures. It's about leadership and management that knows how to get stuff done, and when they make mistakes, and we all make mistakes, they admit their mistakes. That's not what happened here over the last year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. One important note here. I think we learned a lot of lessons in the last several months. I would argue that we're still learning lessons, and I would argue that sometimes the debate over the ideas about how best to deal with the coronavirus and the aftermath have become, at least at the national level, like a lot of our politics, very sort of people retreating to their corners and somewhat toxic. But I think this session, our body's done a good job of trying to work on addressing issues and trying to work together as it relates to COVID. On this issue, I think it's important to note another piece of context in that, and I actually found a very scholarly write-up on this as I was kind of getting ready for this bill, but something I've been looking into before is mentioned how the FDA had not certified the tests. We're learning that excessive government bureaucracy often can get in the way of innovation, and it doesn't always come up to bite us, but it does in the middle of an emergency, unforeseen situation. So I think it's we don't regulate the FDA on this on the Senate floor, but I think it is mindful of anytime we're putting in regulations in place at any level of government to look at how nimble are we being, because it seems to me, based on the research I've done, that the FDA, this is not just, by the way, the problem of the previous administration. The FDA had a lot of things that were very hard to overcome in the middle of an emergency and a crisis that had been that way for many years. I say all that to say, it's been said already a little bit, but the emergency situation caused an emergency decision. I'm going to vote for this bill. My vote for this bill is looking to the future. What can we learn, not just in this one specific instance that's been cited, but everything that we've gone through as a nation dealing with COVID, with governors and executives making a lot of decisions? What can we learn? But also moving forward, I think having a few safeguards in place. And I appreciate that the bill has been heavily amended to be just really distill it down to making sure there's just some guardrails and safeguards to be sure that we still need to be able to do things in an emergency, but just have a few checks and balances. A little bit is fine. I think that's a good balance to strike. I hear the back and forth on the floor, but I just wanted to make the point that let's think through as we put a few guardrails in place because of an emergency situation that we had that our governor and many other governors and executives had to deal with. Let's look at some of the underlying causes of why we aren't able to be as nimble, why we aren't able to be as innovative, and evaluate that as well. But again, I will be voting green, and I think a few guardrails moving forward in the future for future governors, and I hope we never have to experience what we've experienced in the last year. But for future executives, it'll give them some additional help as well in guardrails and guidelines. So I will be voting green. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to special order this bill until the end of today.
Until the end of the day. Are there any objections to the Senator's motion? Without objection, so ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1131, Carroll County Delegation, Carroll County Public Facilities Bond.
House Bill 1131 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1131, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1142, Howard County Delegation, Howard County School Redistricting, Public Testimony, Howard County 721.
House Bill 1142 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1142, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1190, Howard County Delegation, Howard County Board of Education, redetermination of geographic attendance area, Howard County 521.
House Bill 1190 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1190, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1207, Delegate Bridges, Environment, Commission on Environmental Justice and Sustainable Communities Reform.
House Bill 1207 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 1207, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1210, the Speaker, Corporate Diversity Board, Executive Leadership and Mission.
House Bill 1210 is on third reader for final passage. Chair recognizes the senator from District 33.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of questions for the floor leader.
Will the floor leader yield? Senator from District 40.
Sure. Good evening, Senator.
Senator, may
Good
proceed.
evening. How are you? Fine. Let me see if I can see over here. We had some discussion the other day on this bill.
Yes.
Could you share with the floor again how many businesses were originally anticipated as the bill was introduced?
Prior to amendment, I think it was north of 400-something thousand.
Yeah, that's what I recall. And the amendment was designed to recognize sole proprietorships. It's difficult to draw out minority ownership or their participation in minority activities. Is that right?
I'm sorry, you got a little muffled there towards the end. Can you repeat that, Senator,
happens.
please?
That the purpose for the exclusion of sole proprietors was to recognize the uniqueness of their situation.
Correct.
Very good. How many companies are anticipated being covered by the bill as it stands?
According to the information that we have, just looking at the legislation that was passed 2 years ago, I think it was somewhere 65,000.
Yeah, very good. Well, Senator, thank you very much for that information. Mr. President, I have an amendment.
Senator has an amendment. Please, if the senator could read the amendment number.
Sure. House Bill 1210-773-290/1.
290. One moment, Senator. Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So this amendment recognizes that of that 60-some thousand businesses, probably about 10% have already been certified through the minority business enterprise process as our processes through the Maryland Department of Transportation. So this afternoon I got on the MDOT site and I was reviewing the 7,700 businesses that have been approved, that have been researched, that have been vetted by our state government to verify their minority-owned, women-owned, and all the other criteria which are in place to make sure that we give these folks a fair shake at business. This bill just adds them as an excluded group since they've already been vetted. Their information is public record. And I think it just makes sense not to put them through the additional bureaucratic hurdle of having to register since they're already on a state-controlled database which identifies their minority status. Mr. President, request a favorable report on this amendment.
The floor leader moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Mr. President, and thank you, Senator, for offering this amendment. As you probably already know, been a huge advocate for MBEs because it serves such a valuable asset to our community here. But I'm going to ask the body to reject this amendment. I had a chance to talk to the senator about it. Yes, MBEs are already go through a separate process. This bill seeks to look at the corporate diversity across the board. I don't think that this bill, the amendment is necessary to exclude them from this process. So I ask the body if they would please reject this amendment.
All right, on the amendment, any further discussion? If not,
roll call, please, Mr.
The
President.
senators request a roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1210 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? Actually, Chair, in explaining his vote, as an econ major in the undergrad, our markets work with perfect information. The more information we have, the more efficient markets are. At the end of the day, this bill provides more information for consumers to make decisions and for government to make policy, and for that reason, I am supportive of the bill. Clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1210, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1219, Delegate Conaway, Baltimore City Tax Sales Notice.
House Bill 1219 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1219, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1222, Delegate Conaway, Baltimore City Tax Sales Notice Requirements.
House Bill 1222 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1222, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we've got another third reading calendar, number 33. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 156, Delegate Lukey, Student and Military Voter Empowerment Act.
House Bill 156 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 156, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 185, Delegate T. Branch, Alcoholic Beverages on Sales Required Multiple Purchases.
House Bill 185 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 185, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 373, Delegate Wilson, Education, Child Abuse and Sexual Misconduct Prevention, Hiring Emergent Employees.
House Bill 373 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 373, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 854, Delegate Kaiser, Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center, Inclusion of Child Welfare Data and Governing Board.
House Bill 854 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 854, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 944, Delegate Solomon, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Pilot Program established.
House Bill 944 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 944, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 974, Prince George's County Delegation, Prince George's County Alcoholic Beverages License, Sanctions, and Sunday Off-Sale Permits, Prince George's County 31721.
House Bill 974 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 974, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 991, Delegate Gilchrist, Natural Resources, Forest Mitigation Banks, Qualified Conservation.
House Bill 991 is on third reader for final passage. Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the Middle Eastern Shore.
Thank you very much. I have a couple questions for the floor leader, the chairman of the committee.
Will the floor leader yield for a question? Senator may proceed.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, can you go over again for me the money that's used for the trees? Because I thought I heard one thing on the floor, but I went back and read the bill. And it was different than what I thought I heard. I thought I heard you say that the first $1 million would come out of the Chesapeake Bay Trust Fund or the Restoration Fund, but then the rest of it would be coming from the general fund.
That's correct.
But when I read in the bill, it talked about 10 million coming from the restoration fund that would then go to, I believe, the Chesapeake Bay folks to plant trees.
Right, that's in the first year. It's $15 million a year, and in the first year, $15 million would be set aside. 10 would go to the trust to oversee it, and there's 2 other pots of $2.5 million of some existing programs. After year 1, which I'm not sure if it's 22 or 23, then the subsequent years it would come from the general fund. So in other words, in the original bill, all 10 years came from the BRF. This year, basically as a recommendation from the House, it just took funds for year 1, and in year 2 through 10 of the program, it would come from the general fund.
Okay, so 10 million will go to a not-for-profit?
They currently, as I understand it, oversee major tree plantings around the state and have a program in place. We have utilized, I think, as much as we could. There are 2 or 3 programs in the state, and rather than start a new one, we're using the ones that exist.
Okay, I was just trying to get that straight in my head because I know there had been some questions earlier in this session about a lot of money going to a private entity that would get a big return on nutrient reduction. So I'm just trying to keep this all straight.
Yeah, it doesn't go to any private entity. The Chesapeake Bay Trust is it's utilized by DNR for a lot of programs, and a lot of trees run through them. They're a nonprofit with open books as far as I understand.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure that's real comforting, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 32.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we've had a real issue in my county with a school project that we've been trying to get complete, and it's really been about the tree restoration issue. And I hope I can ask that this be held until tomorrow so I can talk to my Board of Education folks about this issue with the tree replacement. So may I ask to hold the bill till tomorrow, please?
Senators request a special order until tomorrow. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee on the special order.
We can do that. It's going to have to go back to the House, and I think it's important to understand if the bill doesn't pass, the mitigation program stops. The Forest Conservation, it's a little longer answer, Mr. President. Mm-hmm. The Forest Conservation Act is fairly explicit in the law. The 24 jurisdictions, or many of them, have been interpreting it a certain way. The Attorney General for the state of Maryland said, your interpretation is wrong and it has to stop. That's why this bill came in. So I can only tell you, if there's no bill, there's no mitigation, and even the people who are utilizing it with banks now, both the builders and developers, and on the other hand, some of the people in the rural area, farmers who are selling or their trees or putting it in the bank and making money from this, won't have any program. But if you want to wait a day, I don't want to get in the way of any information you might need.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will talk with my board first thing in the morning. Thank you.
All right. Motion to special order. Any objections? It appears not. Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1108, Delegate Wyville, Washington County, alcoholic beverages, special event permits for wineries. This is an emergency bill.
All right. House Bill 1108 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1108, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1288, Delegate Ampry, alcoholic, Baltimore City, 40th District, alcoholic beverages.
House Bill 1288 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1288, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1343, Delegate Kipke, Anne Arundel County, Party Central Committees, Republican Requirements.
House Bill 1343 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1343, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1350, Delegate Wilkins, Campaign Finance Revisions.
House Bill 1350 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1350, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We've got a consent calendar, number 34. Clerk will read the calendar.
Senate third reading calendar, number 34, consent number 12.
All right, Senators, these bills are on third reading for final passage. We've got a number of bills in here, 10 or so. Are there any bills that Senators wish to separate and vote separately? If not, on the entire calendar, third reading, final passage, no discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. We've got another one, number 35. Clerk will read the calendar.
Senate third reading calendar, number 35, consent number 13.
All right, Senators, these bills are on third reading for final passage. Number of bills, probably 15 or so. Please glance through. Are there any that Senators wish to vote separately? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Anyone wish to? The clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, bills on consent calendar number 13, having received a constitutional majority, are declared passed. All right, Senators, we are going to have to do some rule suspensions. We've got some Senate bills that we'd like to get to the House for them to take up tomorrow. So we're going to have to do it per calendar. So we have two calendars. We're going to go to calendar 62. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 677, Senator Edwards, Allegheny County, alcoholic beverages, Class BD beer, wine, and liquor license.
Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move that we suspend the rules and do two readings in one day for calendars 62 and 63.
All right. The Majority Leaders move that we suspend the rules for two readings on Senate bills in one single legislative day. Any discussion on the Senator's motion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Rule 24 having been suspended, we can now, for calendar 62 and 63, we'll read again the first bill.
Senate Bill 677, Senator Edwards, Allegheny County, alcoholic beverages, Class BD beer, wine, and liquor license.
Senate Bill 677 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 677, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 829, Senator Lamb, State Procurement, Emergency and Expedited Procurements, Revisions and Reporting.
Senate Bill 829 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to explain their vote? Chair recognizes Senator from District 7 explaining his vote. No? All right. The clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 829, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar 63, clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 229, Senator Wallstreicher, Public Safety Pretrial Services Program Grant Fund, Extension and Program Requirements.
Senate Bill 229 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 229, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 578, Senator McCray, Income Tax, Internal Revenue Code Amendments, decoupling.
Senate Bill 578 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator Minority Whip.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to read through this. Could the floor leader yield for some questions?
Will the floor leader yield? Appears so. Senator may proceed.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out real quickly, because the bill came out tonight. We're doing 2 readings a day. I'm just trying to figure out what we're doing here. Looks like we're decoupling from some CARE Act provisions. I'm just trying to make sure, because it shows the revenues are going up a lot in 22 and 23 as a result of the bill. So are we decoupling from any tax breaks or?
So this is an amended version. Let me be very clear. There were a couple of amendments to this, so it's a revised fiscal note at this time. But what happens with the tax break that was given, that was the first time that we looked back. Usually they're looking forward the years. That was the first time that we're looking back. So we're not doing the original bill that was done, but what we are doing is going forward. If the federal government makes the choice to give out tax breaks, we're going to decouple from the previous years in the past is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so if the federal government is this corporate taxes or income tax?
This was corporate taxes, and this was, like I said, this is the first time that it ever was a look back. Usually we do it going forward years. So they looked back 3 years, which then cost the state millions of dollars. I think that because we had a good fiscal year, folks weren't as concerned about the look back, but just going forward, this is a policy that the state of Maryland should be choosing to go forward. The federal government should not be deciding this action for us. We can help when we talk about the ones that going forward, but we had no say in the ones that were looking back.
Sure. So what happened was the federal government in that CARES Act, they cut some corporate tax rates. You want to decouple so that those rates will stay higher in Maryland by decoupling.
We want to decouple because we want to make sure that the legislators that we have in this body are making those choices, not the folks in Washington for us.
Okay. Well, I think I answered my question. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Bill's on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 37 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 578 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 711, Senator King, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Pilot Program established.
Senate Bill 711 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 711, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 849, Senator Lamb, Baltimore, Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport, Property Tax Credit and Rental or Use of Motor Vehicles.
Senate Bill 849 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes Senator from District 30.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to special order this bill until the appropriate time on Saturday.
On Saturday? All right. On Saturday, are there any objections to the Senator's motion? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Let's do these messages. We've got some conference committees, it looks like. House Bill 421. The clerk will read the first message. Oh, I'm sorry, these are messages from the House. 421.
Mr.
One
President?
moment. Are these non-concurrences here?
This would be, we do not recede.
Setting up. Okay, I think we already did. Did we already send a did we already send a message? No. No. Okay. So we have to, but we do have to read the message first from the House. Okay. Let's do that. The clerk will read the first message.
House Bill 421, Delegate Rosenberg, Income Tax Distribution, Tax Clinics for Low-Income Marylanders. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Should the Senate prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the House appoints Delegate Feldmark Chair, Delegate Polakovich-Carr, Delegate Buckle. Said bill is returned herewith by order Sylvia Seeger, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. If the chair wants to give us a status update on the bill.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The committee does not recede on the House amendments to Bill 421. The bill establishes a special fund and related processes to provide supplemental grant funding for certain entities to provide tax clinics for low-income state residents. The Senate and the House disagree on the amount of funding that should be provided each year for the distribution of that funding.
All right, so the Senate is setting up a conference committee. Therefore, the clerk will read the message to the House.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate Feldmark Chair, Delegate Polakovich-Carr, Delegate Buckle. The Senate appoints Senator Zucker Chair, Senator Elrith, Senator Quarterman. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexandra, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is ordered adopted. Okay, we have a special order calendar, and then we'll do some last committees and then concurrences. So we're getting there. We're getting close. We're moving along. Special order calendar number 50. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 127, Delegate Boyce, Maryland Paint Stewardship. Questions on the adoption of the amendment offered from the floor by Senator Reedy.
All right, Senators, the question before the body right now is on the amendment from the senator from District 5. The chair recognizes the senator from District 5?
Yes, I believe, Mr. President, I need to withdraw the amendment
All right,
that I had offered.
Senator moves to withdraw the amendment. Senator moves to withdraw the amendment. Any objections to the senator's motion? If not, so ordered. The amendment is withdrawn.
And then I need to substitute that with a different amendment.
All right, if the senator could read the amendment number.
Yes, it's House Bill 127, and the amendment is 783-922/1.
All right, one moment, Senator.
Mr. President?
As we're waiting, yes.
I'm happy to yield to the chairman.
The maker of the motion yield to the floor leader, please.
I would be happy to, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman.
All right, the chair recognizes the floor leader of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we'd like to refer this back to committee.
All right, the senator has moved to refer the bill back to committee. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, so ordered. The bill will be referred back to the committee. All right, we've got the report of the Committee on Judicial Proceedings, number 43. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 316, Delegate Smith, Conditions of Pretrial Release, Home Detention Monitoring, favorable with one amendment.
All right, 316. Chair recognizes Senator from District 11 as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this bill establishes that a pretrial defendant may not be required to pay a private home detention monitoring agency's fee or pay for the device if the defendant qualifies as being indigent or is provided a private home detention monitoring device or GPS device by the state or a local jurisdiction. The bill requires the state to pay for the device for any costs or fees incurred by defendants who meet this criteria. The bill states the intention of the General Assembly that subject to the availability of federal funds, the implementation of this requirement be funded in FY22 using federal funds. The bill also establishes a work group on home detention monitoring. It takes effect July 1, 2021, and remains effective until 1 year after the end of the governor's proclamation of the COVID-19 catastrophic health emergency and state of emergency. The provisions regarding the work group terminate on June 30th, 2022. There is one committee amendment that provides that 2 members of the work group who represent private home detention monitoring agencies are now voting members. I move for the favorable committee report.
The floor leader moves for the
And
adoption of the one
amendment.
committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield for a quick question?
Will the floor leader, Senator may proceed.
Thank you. It's sometimes hard to hear, but it sounded like you connected home detention, paying for the devices with COVID and the emergency order and stuff. Could you just connect those two, please, for me?
Sure, absolutely. So, as we all know, the courts have been closed for a number of months, and the decisions were made to monitor people more at home. So there have been way more people who have been successfully spending their pretrial detention using these home monitoring devices, and many of those people are indigent and have had to pay for it, especially in this time, and so that's why it's tied to this period of time.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much for the explanation.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank
All right,
you.
on the amendment, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 316 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 619, Prince George's County Delegation, Prince George's County Speed Monitoring Systems, Residential Districts, Prince George's County, 30221, favorable.
All right. Oh, yes. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 619 authorizes the placement of speed monitoring systems, speed cameras in Prince George's County on highways and residential districts with a maximum posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour. This is local legislation with no amendments. Speed monitoring systems must be authorized in a local jurisdiction by the governing body of the jurisdiction, but only after a reasonable notice and a public hearing. Before activating a speed monitoring system, a local jurisdiction must publish notice of the location of the speed monitoring system on its website and in a newspaper of general circulation in the jurisdiction. In addition, the jurisdiction must also ensure that the system conforms with the specific traffic control device standards adopted by the State Highway Administration. This bill is aligned with what occurs also in Montgomery County. Move for the adoption of the committee, the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 619 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 626, Prince George's County Delegation, Prince George's County Vehicle Height Monitoring Systems, Prince George's County, 30521, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 626 authorizes Prince George's County and municipalities within the county to place vehicle height monitoring systems on highways in Prince George's County if authorized by the appropriate governing body after notice and a public hearing, similar to the authorization for such systems currently in place in Baltimore City and beginning October 1, 2021 in Baltimore County. The bill also establishes requirements for Prince George's County and municipalities within the county that must be met before the vehicle height monitoring system can be installed. Specifically, county and municipal work groups must be convened and perform specific tasks, including the development and maps processes and exemptions. Accordingly, should the authorization be used, a local government agency may issue warnings or citations to a vehicle owner for violating a state or local law restricting the presence of certain vehicles at certain times. In addition, a local government agency must issue a warning for a vehicle's first violations. The maximum fine for the citation is $250 for a second violation and $500 for a third and subsequent violation. There are no committee amendments. Move favorable on the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 626 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's do these concurrences. We've got one out of JPR, calendar 27. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 607, Senator Jackson, criminal law, harm to service animals, JPR.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee on the House amendments.
My apologies, Mr. President.
No worries.
All right. So as passed by the Senate, Senate Bill 607 prohibits a person from willfully and maliciously killing or injuring a service animal as specified and establishes criminal penalties for violations. Violators may also be ordered to pay full restitution for all damages arising out of the offense. So the House amendments further prohibit a person from willfully and maliciously interfering with the use of a service animal or allowing an animal that the person owns or over which the person has control to interfere with the use of the service animal. A person who violates this provision is guilty of a misdemeanor and on conviction is subject to imprisonment not exceeding 1 year. The committee moves to concur with the House amendments.
All right, the committee moves, JPR committee recommends that we adopt the House amendments. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 607 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 607, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we've got another concurrence here out of Finance. Calendar 28, clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 103, Senator Kramer, Business Regulation, Retail Pet Stores Modification, No More Puppy and Kitten Mills Act of 2021, Finance.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you. Senate Bill 103 expands the definition of retail pet store to include brokers, entities that transfer dogs or cats for resale for the purpose of prohibiting retail pet stores and brokers from selling domestic animals as pets. The House amendments alter the definition of retail pet store and establish the task force to study canine breeding facilities and sourcing standards. We move to concur.
All right. The Finance Committee moves that the Senate concur with the House amendments. Any discussion on the amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 103 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 103, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 857, Senator Hester, Health, Maryland Behavioral Health and Public Safety Center of Excellence Establishment.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 857, the bill establishes the Maryland Community Health and Public Safety Center of Excellence within the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services. The center's activities include strategic planning, technical assistance, and state and local government coordination for carrying out its purpose. The House amendment is clarifying. We move to concur.
All right. The Finance Committee moves that we concur with the House amendments. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 857 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 857, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill. I'm sorry, that's the last one on that calendar. All right, we are at EHE concurrences, calendar 29. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 22, Senator Young, On-Site Sewage Disposal Systems Inspection Licensing, EHE.
All right. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee on the House amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires any person who engages in the business of inspecting a septic system must obtain an on-site wastewater property transfer inspection license. We added the word knowing to the House bill. We'll do the same here. We'll concur. EHE recommends concurring.
All right. EHE recommends that the Senate adopt the House amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 22 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 22, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 324, Senator Ellsworth, Environment and Natural Resources, Complaints, Inspection, and Enforcement Information, Maintenance, and Reporting.
Senate Bill 324. Chair recognizes Chair of the Committee on the House Amendments.
Yes, Mr. President. This set up a system for tracking and reporting requirements of Department of Natural Resources and Department of the Environment. The House amendments add some reporting requirements relating to sewage overflow incidents. They conform the bill to House Bill 204 as passed the Senate. We move to concur.
The EHE moves that the Senate concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The House amendments are adopted. Are there any? Oh, just kidding. Senate Bill 324 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 38 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 324, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 692, Senator Young, State Planning, Preservation of Agricultural Land, Goal, EHE.
Chair recognizes Chair of the Committee on the House Amendments.
Yeah, Mr. President, a number of years ago, we said the state set a goal of preserving 1 million acres of productive agricultural land by 2030. It looks like we're not going to make it, so this extends the deadline. The amendments conform the bill to its cross files passed by the Senate unanimously. EHE recommends we concur.
The EHE recommends that the Senate concur with the House amendments. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 692 is again before us on third reader. Final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 692, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 767, Senator Washington, Higher Education, Hunger-Free Campus Grant Program established, EHE.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on House Amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill, a campus-free grant program, addresses student hunger and basic food needs on campus of institutions. The House amendments conform the Senate bill to the House bill, working its way through the Senate. It expands the scope of the bill to include regional higher education centers. We move to concur.
The EHE Committee moves for the Senate to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 767 is on third reading, again for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 767, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We're getting there. We're close. We're very close. Oh, my gracious. Oh, yes. Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of JPR.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I be recorded in the green for Senate Bill 22, please?
On the green for 22, are there any objections? Green? If not, without objection, so ordered. We're going to leave those concurrences for tomorrow. But we do have one more special ordered bill. If we could bring up that bill at the end of the calendar. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 7. What's that? Oh. Clerk, yes, clerk, read the bill.
House Bill 1091, Delegate Risnick, State Procurement, Emergency, and Expedited Procurements, Revisions, and Reporting.
House Bill 1091 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 7 on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to get up after we had that discussion about this and went down memory lane of a year ago.
And, I kind of thought about where we were. And exactly 1 year ago, we had 848 people in our hospitals with COVID. We had 29 confirmed deaths, and those numbers were rising exponentially. We watched what was taking place in Italy and the fear that we had. Nobody was going outside. People were getting groceries and wiping them off outside before they took them inside. It was absolutely petrifying at that time. And there's a term called fog of war. That's when you're in battle and you get so engaged, there's things going on, that you lose situational awareness. And we were doing our best. I think this state, this governor, this administration was doing its best, do everything they could. We couldn't get tested. People couldn't get tested. People were scared. Our offices were getting slammed with phone calls saying, hey, I need to get tested. We had nursing homes that were getting infected every day with numbers of patients rising with the infection. We couldn't test them. The governor did the best he could at the time. And did they work? You know what? He had the best information he could. I mean, if we're going to criticize, this state spent millions on a website for an insurance program that didn't work. It happens. You take action and you pivot from there if it doesn't work and figure out what else to do. And then we were criticized about the freight to get it here. Those came from South Korea. There's two ways to get them here: ship or air. The soonest you can get it here on a ship is about 50 days. Because it's got to go on a container ship and be shipped all the way over here. When it came to air, how are you going to get it here? It was pallets of these tests. And we talk about the money that was spent. Congress has spent trillions of dollars on this pandemic. And you know what? Yeah, I hate spending any extra dollar than we have to for the taxpayers. But in a pandemic, look what we've done. I mean, look at the cost of all these plexiglass things around us. We did what we thought we had to do. So, I say as we talk about this bill, I will be supporting it, Mr. President. But let's talk about the situation from a year ago in totality of what we were dealing with at the time. And not Monday morning quarterback and bust people's chops on it. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. For the record, the plexiglass was made in Maryland. In all seriousness. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 3.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to violate for 1 minute what I'm going to ask everybody to do. I don't know how many people here have ever served in an executive position in government. I did for 16 years, certainly not at the scale of Maryland, but at a good scale for a small city. I made dozens of decisions. I spent hundreds of millions of dollars on capital projects. I don't think I ever did one that some group didn't fight. I know that sometimes you do things that you think are right and they turn out to be mistakes, and sometimes you do something that looks like a mistake and it turns out to be right. I'm not going to judge what decision was made. I have my opinion. I'm sure everybody here has theirs. I think the best thing to do is over a Coke or a glass of wine or a beer, whichever you enjoy, sit around and argue about what the governor did or the president did, or if you want to go back and argue about what I did, that's okay too. But I think what we have here is a good bill that hopefully will make it a little harder to make a mistake. But you know what? In an emergency, despite the bill, sometimes you have to make a decision. In an executive position, if you're doing your job, you got to make it, and you hope you're right a lot more times than you're wrong. So I just say, I think we have a good bill. Let's not argue on the floor about the job that everybody else did. Do it at home, or like I said, over a Coke, a glass of wine, or a beer. Let's just vote a good bill through. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the bill, third reading, final passage, Chair recognizes the Senator from District 12.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to speak to the bill and also in the process set the record straight on a few things. I did read the entire audit that came out on Friday. I read the whole thing. And this is why this bill is so incredibly important, to address some of the shortcomings that were identified in there. And, this is not to denigrate anyone's good intentions. I think everyone's well-meaning. Obviously, mistakes can be made when folks are under a lot of pressure, and there can be the fog of war as well that's going on. But in all honesty, all they had to do was really just follow their job, to follow the regulations and statute that were established for these types of procurements. What the audit found was that the tests were not procured in accordance with state procurement regulations, including the lack of a written contract. What this bill does is require that there be a written contract. It's very simple. You don't purchase things without a written contract. And the reason for that is very clear from what we saw in this example. The tests, as was cited by my colleagues across the aisle, were requested, and the manufacturer was requested to submit for emergency use authorization from FDA, which they did. However, FDA, which they're entirely entitled to do, requested a change in some of the reagents that were used in the test. Before FDA was able to request those changes, the state had proceeded with the order, and as a result, what was shipped to us was not what FDA finally authorized at the end. Even though the manufacturer knew at the time that FDA had requested a change in the reagents, the manufacturer still shipped us the tests with the prior reagents, not what was finally approved by FDA. Why that matters is because without a written contract, it's like buying something without a return policy. There was no way to return these. There were no terms or stipulations in place to be able to return these without having to pay additional money. The state was over a barrel to have to pay another $2.5 million to be able to get tests that worked and that were authorized. And they were simply, and the other issue is that the state was really obfuscating the use of these tests through the entire process. They told us that the tests were clunky. They told us that we were told that the tests were being improved. In all honesty, the tests were not authorized and were not able to be used at all because we didn't have written documentation about whether or not we could return these tests without additional charge. And so there really is a lot of finger pointing here when you look at this, and there was no clear final approver of this entire procurement. You had DGS pointing the finger at MDH, MDH pointing the finger back at DGS, others pointing the finger at the governor's office, others pointing to the First Lady's office. And at the end of the day, the audit determined that they could not find the final approver. There was no written documentation of the final approver of this contract. That's why this bill is needed, because this bill will require that there be a written paper trail as to who finally approved the written contract, to ensure that this would never happen again. And so, I do want to thank, as the chair of the Joint Audit and Evaluation Committee, our colleagues in the Office of Legislative Audits, as well as the Office of Program Evaluation and Government Accountability for their work in this too. I know they've been denigrated that this was a political witch hunt. This was work done by our nonpartisan Department of Legislative Services staff, who did a lot of good work to be able to analyze this contract, as well as the Blue Flame contract, which is still pending. So there will be more to this to come once that audit comes back. But I do want to thank them for their work on this as well. This is incredibly important to be able to put some basic guardrails and have accountability in how we procure our emergency contracts here in the state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, HB 1091 is on third reading for final passage.
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Thank you. I was just going to ask if you could ring the bells, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, yes, please.
There we go. We got it. Never mind.
Thank you. Oh. All right. On third reader for final passage, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? And who wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1091, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we're going to call it there. We only got concurrences, plenty of time for those. All right, thank you all for bearing with us. I know this was a hard set, but it prevented a Friday night session, I promise you. let's see, I do want to make one quick important announcement, and it's just to recognize some of the bipartisan work that has happened, not just recently, but throughout the entire interim. There were six bills sent to the governor last week. Senate Bill 771 by the senator from District 9, Senate Bill 816 from the senator from District 8, 817 District 8, 818 District 8, 819 District 8, 893 District 21. Also in working in partnership on the Joint Committee with the senator from Prince George's District 24, and the senator from the Upper Eastern Shore, who has been focused on the unemployment system, senator from District 36. There's just an unbelievable amount of work that happened on the unemployment system, and it was complicated and it was messy, and there were changes and fits and starts and problems and fixes. But this was a package of bills that came forward, and it wasn't always easy and clear, but those bills are now going to become law. And I think it's a testament to the work of the members of this body. And also, I want to give a shout out to our phenomenal Chief of Staff for the Senate, Jake Weissman, who helped navigate these as well. This has been a long year, and it's the teamwork in this room that's making it better for Marylanders. So, would like to recognize now the senator from District 44.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded in the green for HB 1142.
1142?
Yes, sir.
Any objections? Without objections, so ordered.
I would also like to be recorded in the green for HB 1131.
1131. Any objections? Without objections, so ordered.
Thank you.
All right. Senator from District 12, is that an old one? Yep, okay. Yes, Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to give you a brief Camel Hair Caucus report
Yes,
this
please,
year.
Senator.
Normally we have a big picture, staff and everybody who wears the camel hair, but we can't do that this year because of COVID. And normally we have about 50% of the people wearing camel hair, and now our numbers are reduced, our ranks are thinning. So, I started to think about why is this happening? And first, to give some history, it's a 40-year tradition. Started in the early 80s. Somebody bought a camel hair, somebody else bought a camel hair, and there's no rationale behind it, which is typical. So, now, a couple years ago, the leopards came into play, okay? And, their percentage is about 50%. I was just kind of, when you sit up here, you see people come and go, and you kind of inventory. And the issue is that the leopard is a natural predator of the camel, if you Google that. So I thought about, our favorite bill this session, which is the organized killing bill. And I began to think about, what did the leopard have? The camel doesn't. Well, they have handbags, purses, shoes, scarves, pants. We have jackets. It's pretty boring. So I just asked that next year we think about a camel hair sanctuary. We bring them back, and we hope that this 40-year tradition will go on for another year. But it's been a tough year for us, and pray for us, Mr. President.
I hear there's some good studies of camel culture coming out. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from
Mr.
District 8.
President, I kind of take offense of that because you guys have ties, bow ties, regular ties. You could wear socks, but with leopard print. But the other thing is that we as women have always, not always, but many, many times have worn the camel coat. We were all in the camel
Very
coat,
true.
and we did take pride of that. So I think all of us women should also wear our camel coats on Thursday and our leopard on Tuesday, or our animal print.
That's right. Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. This is a tough transition, so I just want to give it a second. Hold on. All right. Chair recognizes Senator from District 11.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is indeed a transition for a moment of levity to a moment of seriousness that I wanted to take a couple of minutes to recognize that today is Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's also Yom HaShoah, which is another name for it. And it is on this day where we remember the awful, awful circumstance of perishing of 6 million Jews and 5 million other people at the hands of the Nazis many, many years ago. So as I was sitting here and we were on the floor, I got a statement that a colleague from Washington State, that a colleague from Montgomery County and I have worked with in a national organization, and she made a statement on the House floor in Washington State, and I just want to paraphrase a little bit about what she said because I found it particularly meaningful. And I also want to add a couple of personal notes. I am here today because I had two grandparents who left Nazi Germany when they could in 1937. And it's fitting that it's this month that one of them passed away 35 years ago this month, and the other one passed away 20 years ago this month. I was very close to them. And my grandfather went to tell his boss in a tannery in southern Germany that he was getting engaged to my grandmother. And this was 1937, and his boss, thankfully, said to him, "Congratulations, and you're fired. Look around at what is happening. You need to leave." And that was an amazing thing, an amazing gift that he gave him. And he fled, and he was able to get out in time and called for my grandmother some months later and was able to build a life in this country. And I am here today, and my family is here today largely because they were able to get out. So I want to take a minute to talk about the survivors, who so many of them are old and are dying off. And I'm sure that many of you have heard directly from them what their experiences were like, and it is so essential that we continue to tell their stories and we continue to teach children in schools like we do here in Maryland about the Holocaust and the many, many lessons that we need to learn about racism and hatred and treatment of one another that we can generalize from our experience in the Holocaust. So we need to remember the survivors. We need to also be thankful for the many military people in the U.S. Armed Forces who were the liberators of the camps and who put their own lives on the line to protect our American way of life at that time too, and who stood with those survivors who had just witnessed and experienced the most horrendous atrocities ever. I also want to recognize the allies. So many people in the community, not enough unfortunately at that time, but people who were there, who hid people and who went out of their way to protect people and to stand in alliance like so many of us do and so many other people do when others are at risk for any kind of hatred. I also want to recognize that there are bystanders and there are people who witness things and don't say anything and don't do what they should do morally and to protect one another. And so we have to recognize that there are those among us too who don't have the moral courage or fortitude to take a stand. So I just want to think about, like, who are we? Are we one of the liberators? Are we one of the allies? Or are we one of the bystanders? And I would like to offer, if we could, adjourn tonight in memory of the 6 million people and the 5 million other people who perished during the Holocaust. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we very, very much thank the Senator for bringing that to our attention, and we would be honored to adjourn in their honor and their memory. Thank you very much for bringing that up. All right, busy day. We're almost there, 4 days left. We're going to get through it. Any other announcements for the good of the order? Yes, Chair. Oh, we have to do committee announcements. I'm sorry. Yes, Chair recognizes Chair of Finance.
Really, I wanted to respond that many very dear friends and civic-minded neighbors some decades ago from the Jewish community embraced me, taught me a lot about the atrocities and the terror that my Jewish brothers and sisters had gone through. And I ended up serving as president of the Institute for Christian and Jewish Studies for a while, and the Black Jewish Forum of Baltimore. Was able to go to Israel twice in '87 and in '92 to see firsthand the resurrection of life and the vibrancy of that great nation following all that people had gone through. It's very important that we take advantage of opportunities to know more firsthand about what others, sometimes we think we've suffered, but we are not alone. And so, thanks so much for bringing it up. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. Any finance announcements? We'll go with Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. And,
Yeah, I guess I'm still overcome. In the morning, Senate Finance is meeting for a brief hearing at 9:30. And what time are we coming in here, Mr.?
Noon tomorrow. Noon.
All right, and so at 11, we will also have a brief voting session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair recognizes Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. To try to avoid voting in the afternoon, we'll come in at 10:30 and vote up until we join the Senate and Chambers at 12. So hopefully an hour and a half will take care of the bills in front of us.
Excellent.
10:30.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. Voting for budget and tax at 10:30.
10:30 B&T. Chair recognizes the Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet tomorrow at 10:30 for a voting session.
10:30 tomorrow for JPR. Chair recognizes the Chair of Baltimore City Delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Baltimore City Delegation has 2 quick votes, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
All right. Chair recognizes the Chair of Baltimore County Delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Remember, 8:30 tomorrow morning, we'll see you on Zoom for Baltimore County Delegation.
Woo. Baltimore County, rising with the chickens. All right. Any other announcements? If not, quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? So the clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, Senate Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Friday, April 9th at 12 p.m. in honor of Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Without objection, so ordered. Stay safe. Get some rest, everyone. 4 to go.